Ethan wasn't the kind of man who believed in ghosts. He believed in late nights, bitter black coffee, and the comfort of small apartments close enough to work that he could stumble there half awake. He believed in keeping to himself, in quiet routines that made the days pass unnoticed. When he moved into the fifth-floor flat, he told himself the view wasn't great, but at least the rent was low. He'd recently broken things off with someone. Badly. The kind of breakup that left a metallic taste in your mouth whenever you thought about it. The quiet was what he wanted. No drama, no noise. Just a place where no one knew him. The building suited him. Quiet, a little too quiet sometimes. The kind of silence that made you notice the creaks in your ceiling and the hum of dying lights in the hallway. The air always smelled faintly of rust and old rain soaked into concrete. Ethan told himself he didn't mind. It wasn't like he was looking for more. Each evening, after trudging up the 5 flights of stairs, the elevator hadn't worked since before he moved in, Ethan settled onto his small balcony with tea and cigarettes. The city stretched out around him, not the postcard skyline of Vegas, but rows of old buildings and streets lined with neon signs that buzzed louder than they lit. Directly across from him stood another apartment building, just as worn down as his own. And that's when he noticed her. At first, she barely registered, a girl standing still on the opposite balcony, leaning slightly against the rusty railing. Every night the same spot. She wasn't smoking, not scrolling through a phone, just standing. Weeks passed. Ethan found himself watching her longer than he meant to. Her clothes didn't seem to change. A pale dress, colorless in the dim distance, washed out and loose. Her long dark hair hung flat like curtains drawn closed. She never looked back, not once. He told himself she was just another tenant, quiet, maybe troubled, like him, someone who kept to herself, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't really there. He began noticing other things. Some nights, even when he hadn't meant to look, his eyes drifted to that balcony, expecting her. She was always there, even when wind swept through the alley, rustling signs and banging loose shutters. Her hair didn't move. She didn't fidget. She didn't lean or shift her weight. She simply existed in that one spot, as though someone had painted her into the scene and forgotten to take the painting down. The longer he stared, the more wrong it felt. He started finishing his cigarettes faster, retreating inside and telling himself it was nothing. One night, around 2 a.m., Ethan woke to a sound, knock, knock. He lay still, heart thrumming, not his door, behind him, the glass of his balcony door. He sat up slowly, the darkness pressing in on all sides. Knock, knock, knock. He turned. She stood there, on his side of the glass this time, closer than he'd ever seen her. Her skin wasn't pale, it was gray, like something that had been underwater too long. Her eyes were wide, bottomless, as though staring through him into something further beyond. Her mouth hung open, as if she had forgotten how to close it. Ethan blinked. She was gone. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. He double-locked the balcony door and yanked the curtains closed so tightly the morning sun struggled to creep through. By dawn, exhaustion had dulled the sharp edge of fear. He told himself it was a dream. Had to be. Lack of sleep and too much caffeine playing tricks on his mind. But the part of him that counted locks 3 times before bed wasn't convinced. The next morning, curiosity gnawed at him until he couldn't stand it. He found the building guard slouched by the stairwell, nursing a cigarette. "The girl across from me," Ethan said. "Do you know her?" The guard's hand froze halfway to his mouth. His expression tightened, and for a long moment he didn't answer. "That flat's been empty 3 years, he finally said. Ethan laughed nervously. "Then who stands on that balcony every night?" The guard stubbed out his cigarette, his voice dropping. "She used to. before she jumped. Ethan blinked. Jumped? 5th floor, balcony. Same one you're talking about. The guard looked away. Some say she watches the lonely ones, like she's waiting for company. That night, Ethan didn't open the curtains. He tried to convince himself it was nonsense, urban legends and ghost stories. He kept his eyes fixed on the TV until fatigue finally dragged him under. But as he lay awake, covers pulled to his chin, he heard it again. Knock. 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 Soft, repeated. He pressed his palms over his ears. It didn't help. It would come every night now, just until he looked or answered.
Then started noticing her presence even when the curtains were closed. The air in his flat always felt heavier at night, the corners darker, the silence deeper. He began sleeping with the lights on, waking still exhausted, sweat slick, and with the metallic taste of fear clinging to the back of his throat. He avoided the balcony altogether. The few times he ventured out for groceries, he felt eyes on him, from above, from across the street, from the edges of reflective windows. Once, when fumbling his keys at the door, he caught a fleeting glimpse of her in the building's entrance glass. Not behind him. Not across the street. Standing where he was. Ethan stopped leaving home after dark. The walls of his flat, once a refuge, began to close in. He tried music, TV, anything to drown out the sound. Knock. 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 It never stopped. And each night, it grew harder not to look. Jacob didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in exhaustion, double shifts, and the silent halls of St. Alora's Hospital after 2 a.m. The hospital wasn't ancient or crumbling. It was modern, with clean walls and polished floors. The kind of place where everything smelled like bleach and silence pressed down like weight. Still, there were parts of the building even the staff avoided after dark. Jacob worked nights as a porter, moving equipment, guiding stretchers. He didn't mind the quiet. In fact, he preferred it. Less noise, less chaos. Just tasks to complete and empty halls to walk. But lately, something had changed. It started with room 9 on the east wing. The room wasn't unusual. Standard hospital setup, bed, monitors, chair in the corner. The window overlooked a dark alley filled with humming AC units. It didn't matter who they moved in there. Patients never stayed long. Transfer papers appeared without warning. Nurses whispered about schedules being wrong. Some nights, Jacob would walk by and see the lights off, curtains drawn. Other nights, he'd swear he saw someone moving behind the glass, even though the room was marked empty. He told himself it was fatigue, shadows and reflections. Until the night he had to wheel a monitor cart into room 9. The nurse at the station had avoided his gaze. "Just drop it off inside. No patient in there right now." The door was ajar, lights off. He pushed the cart in, fingers brushing the switch on instinct. Fluorescent light buzzed weakly to life. The room was empty. Almost. A chair stood in the corner, turned toward the window. Something dark pooled beneath it. Not shadow, but something thicker. Something that didn't belong to the light. Jacob stood still, breath caught halfway to panic. Slowly, the chair turned. Empty. The pool beneath it retreated like spilled ink crawling backward. The room brightened. The light above stopped flickering. He left the cart where it stood and walked out fast. That should have been the end. But every night after, Room 9 found him. On his rounds, elevators skipped floors to deposit him outside its door. Hallways that should have turned right now curved left, leading him to that frosted number on the glass. He tried ignoring it. Head down, keep walking. Didn't matter. One night, cleaning staff found his equipment inside room 9, even though he hadn't been there. Another, his radio buzzed with static until a voice whispered his name from the dark speaker grill. Jacob started sleeping less, eating less. He caught his reflection in windows, lagging behind his movements, staring after him when he walked away. Colleagues noticed. "You okay, man?" they'd ask. "You look like hell." He'd laugh it off. "Just tired." But tired didn't explain the handprint on his locker door, pressed from the inside. The breaking point came on a Thursday. His rounds finished early, no one around. Elevator slow tonight, lights dimmer than usual. He found himself at the east wing again. Room 9's door was wide open. Curtain pulled back to reveal nothing but darkness inside. The intercom crackled. "Jacob." He froze. "Come inside." He stepped back. The light above the doorway flared, humming loud. Then silence. He couldn't explain why he stepped forward. Curiosity, stubbornness, some thread of himself tugged into the dark. Inside, the room wasn't empty. His reflection sat in the chair. Not a mirror image, not quite. Taller, paler, eyes too wide, mouth slack, like it was waiting to remember how to smile. It lifted a hand, beckoned. Jacob turned to run. The door slammed, lights snapped off, hands caught his arms, cold, thin, pulling him down. He struggled, breath ragged, heart a wild thing in his chest. He kicked, shouted. The darkness wrapped tighter, pressing silence into his throat. Then, a flash. Light. Bright, white, steady. Nurses, orderlies. His supervisor. He lay on the floor outside room 9, door closed, locked. "There's no patient in there," someone said. "There hasn't been for years." They moved him to a different wing. Different tasks, different floors. Jacob took the change without argument, but sometimes on late shifts he feels the pull again. Hears his name in static, sees doors where none should be. He doesn't answer anymore. He keeps moving, keeps working, and the door to room 9 stays shut. For now. Daniel Reed didn't believe in ghosts, or curses, or whatever nonsense people whispered about the city's subway stations late at night. He was practical, boring even. A finance clerk, 31. Lived alone in a quiet, dull apartment on the outskirts of town. His life was made of simple routines: work, coffee, subway, home. That's why he didn't think twice when he stepped off the escalator into East Point Station at nearly 1:45 a.m. It was quieter than usual. Not empty, but wrongly empty for a place that never truly slept. No footsteps, no conversations, no other passengers fumbling for change or tapping their phones. He checked the glowing sign above the tracks. Next train, 1:55 a.m. Just 10 minutes. He found his usual bench and sat down. The platform stretched out ahead of him like a hospital hallway. Long, pale, buzzing with tired lights. Fluorescent bulbs stuttered in their sockets. A single vending machine hummed in the corner, the kind that hadn't been refilled in years. Daniel yawned, rubbed his eyes. Something about the place tonight felt colder. The kind of cold that didn't come from air conditioning, but from something underneath your skin. Somewhere deep in the tunnel, metal groaned. Not the sharp shriek of bricks,
something slower, heavier, like breathing. He told himself not to be ridiculous. He watched the clock above the platform, 1:50, 1:51. Time dragged. Still, no train. Then he heard footsteps. Slow, unhurried, not hurrying for the last train home. At the far end of the platform, standing beneath a blinking light, was a woman. Long, black coat, pale face, hair tucked beneath a wide, dark hat. She didn't move, didn't look at him, just stood on the yellow safety line, staring into the mouth of the tunnel. Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't seen her come down the stairs, hadn't heard her at all until now. He stood. Excuse me? Are you all right? His voice cracked louder than it should have. She didn't turn, didn't answer. Above them, the intercom crackled. A voice broke through the static, soft and distant, but wrong. Not English, not any language Daniel recognized. Slow, dragging syllables like chanting underwater. The woman turned. Her eyes, sunken, hollow, fixed on him. A slow smile crept across her pale face, but it didn't reach her eyes. Daniel took a step back. The tunnel howled. A gust of wind rushed out like something exhaling. The lights dinned to a pale, sickly yellow. The clock froze at 1:55. The woman stepped down onto the tracks. "No!"
Daniel's shout bounced uselessly off the walls. But she wasn't hurt. She didn't fall. She stood perfectly still between the rails, as though she belonged there, waiting. The tunnel grew darker behind her. Shapes moved in that blackness. Thin, tall things sliding between columns like shadows with faces. Daniel ran. Up the stairs, past the locked gates, past the no entry after hours signs. But every turn led him back, down another staircase, onto the same platform. The same frozen clock. The same woman waiting. His breath came sharp and fast. His reflection in the glass doors didn't match his movements anymore. It stared back with wide, hungry eyes. He wasn't getting out by running. He stepped down onto the tracks, toward her, toward the tunnel's mouth, though every part of him screamed to turn back. The air thickened, tasted of rust and smoke. His ears buzzed with static. Somewhere behind him, the clock blinked. 1:56. Shapes shifted deeper in the dark, reaching. Daniel's gaze locked onto a rusted metal door halfway down the wall. Maintenance only. He ran for it, vaulted the rails, grabbed the handle. It opened. A stairwell spiraled down into dim green light. Pipes leaked onto the grimy steps. Walls wept black moisture. But ahead, faint and distant, glowed the red letters of an exit sign. He didn't stop moving. Down corridors, through service doors. Another gate. Through the stink of something rotting in the pipes. Until he burst out onto an empty maintenance road beneath the night sky. Cold air hit his face like a slap. Behind him, the subway tunnel waited. Still. Silent. He turned. The woman was gone. So was the platform. Only fences and rusted signs remained. He called a cab, went home, locked his door, pulled the curtains. Didn't sleep. Days passed. Weeks. He stopped taking the subway, started walking everywhere. It didn't help. Because East Point Station had been condemned, closed, boarded up for over 10 years, according to the fated notice peeling on the chain-link fence. But some nights, when the city was quiet and the wind came right, Daniel still heard it. The hum of fluorescent lights, the soft scratch of footsteps on tile, the whisper of a train that was never meant to arrive. The woman in black, still waiting, watching, waiting for someone else to notice.